The mains examination for general studies has been conducted. Optional papers are still left. However, overall, 1250 marks, the portion of the mains is done. From essay paper, GS paper 1, 2, 3, and 4. What are the learnings that we can extract out of this? Especially for those of you who are going to appear for the examination next year or even year after that, it is important for you to know how to approach the mains examination. What is it that UPSC has been doing differently when it comes to the mains, or is it quite similar to the earlier situations? Hello and welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to this particular session where we are going to talk about what are the key takeaways that one can extract out of the just conducted mains examination. So, overall, I have summarized it with the help of the questions from essay to GS papers in five major key takeaways. We will take a look at each one of them with examples. And we will also at the end talk about what you as a future aspirant should be doing in order to ensure that you end up having a good preparation for the mains next year. The key takeaways are it is different from the prelims examination. 2026 prelims paper created a lot of panic amongst the candidates that where is UPSC going, which kind of factual questions are being asked. Mains examination was reassuring in the sense that there UPSC stuck to its guns and kept on asking the basic concepts, areas which were expected, and the topics that UPSC has always focused upon. Other than that, there are certain keywords around which UPSC syllabus revolves around. For example, financial inclusion. You had direct questions in GS paper 3 associated with financial inclusion. Same when we talk about GS paper 2 in the questions associated with polity, or in GS paper 1 in the questions associated with history or geography. Then interrelation of topics have been found. Now, each of them I will elaborate in greater detail with the help of examples. Topics should not be studied in silos. A couple of years ago, those topics which were earlier asked in GS paper 3 under science and tech have now been asked under GS paper 1 under the portion of geography. When you are writing the answers need to be nuanced. The answers need to have some aspect of the economic angle, political angle, geographical angle, ethical aspect. Only then will you be able to secure good marks. How to attain that? We'll talk about that. Relevance of PYQs, not only in terms of repeatability, in terms of pattern. For example, solid waste management. The question has been asked. But why has it been asked this year? After all, Delhi waste dump has been prevalent for a long period of time. It was asked almost 10 years ago as well. Why? Because at that point of time, you had the solid waste management rules 2016, which were released. Next year, UPSC asked you a direct question. This year, solid waste management rules amendment 2026 was passed. UPSC asked you a direct question. So catch the pattern in terms of the trend. Also, when we talk about, for example, speaker, the role of speaker in Lok Sabha, that is a question in GS paper 2, which is repeated almost. So their relevance of PYQs is substantial. And then prediction of themes. Digital currency was in news. It was predicted. Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was predicted. In history also, you can have a predictability in terms of what to expect. So let us understand these key takeaways, and I will show it to you with the help of examples. First of all the candidates who entered into a panic mode immediately after prelims, that I don't know what UPSC is going to ask us, what kind of questions are there, relax. Prelims is eliminatory. The factual questions, for example, what you saw in the case of history, or even in the case of environment ecology, many of you panicked that UPSC is not for us. No, this is an eliminatory phase. Prelims is where you are not expected to secure 100% marks. You are expected to solve only certain questions in order to clear the cutoff. And that too can be solved just by the basic concepts and not running after facts. So don't ratify facts in your life. Take a look into the concepts, deep dive into the concepts, you can clear the exam. Now, history was something which was very unpredictable in the case of the prelims. Look at the mains examination. You'll find that a question always is asked in GS paper 1 associated with the national movement. This time again, significance of Gandhian movements lay in the masses they mobilized, elucidate. Right. So the entire Gandhian movement, the aspect of the mass movement which was initiated, the various different, how it was different from the earlier movements, for example, the Swadeshi movement during the partition of Bengal. Now, this is one of the often visited areas by UPSC since time immemorial, expected area. Now, analyze the importance of Ashokan inscriptions for reconstructing Mauryan history. Now, here again, it is not asking you a very factual portion like the prelims. UPSC, if for example you analyze the pattern of history, they have already talked about the Pallava architecture, the Chola architecture. Now, once that has been talked about, the Mauryan, and when we talk about the Vijayanagar, these are some of the areas which are left. Now, that also tells you that going ahead into the future, a question can either be framed out of the Mughal architecture, out of the Rajputana architecture, right? Because or the Delhi Sultanate architecture, because rest of them have already been asked. So either it will be a repetition of PYQs, or you can narrow it down that what will be asked. Don't simply ratify endless facts like the prelims has shown you to do. Okay, so preparation for mains is very, very different, and it is associated with the basics. So join us in the advanced mains program. Okay, starting 2nd of September, almost for 240 plus hours by all the various different educators directed towards the mains preparation. We will ensure live discussion, live answer writing, PYQ based theme discussion, ensure that evaluation is also done. Use the code IES English. But if you are already a platinum member, or if you have already been subscribed to platinum, this is already available to you, so you don't need to worry about it. Okay, so be a part of this session. It will start with polity and governance from second, and then we will graduate into other subjects as well. Now, there were certain expected areas. For example, in the prelims, everyone looked at the portion of the question paper for geography or even for polity, and they were surprised that why and where these questions are asked from. Even though geography was very much from the Indian geography portion, but no question from physical geography was asked in the prelims. However, in the mains exam, you observe you had direct questions from the portion of climatology. Climatology was stressed upon, but interrelation with economy and IR was also done in the case of climatology. Other than that, when we talk about GS paper 2, Lok Sabha, Lok Sabha speaker, right? What does this tell you? This tells you that as a candidate, you need to have a proper study pattern where after you have studied a particular topic, you have revised it from the book, then you prepare your own topic based notes. For example, if you have read about the parliament, after that, each of those important aspects, for example, when you are reading state legislature, governor, speaker, now under the role of speaker, for example, what is the role of speaker when it comes to anti defection? Right? Whether there is any new judgment associated with the role of speaker or not, whether there is a new judgment associated with the governor, any new contemporary example. So that topic based notes, possibly prepare it in an A4 sheet paper so that you can add and subtract those notes when required. That is very, very important for climatology, for geography, for history, for polity. That is something which will yield you marks. Keywords. When we talk about essay and ethics, now these are the difference creating areas. Now, when you talk about essay paper, for example, essay paper is always philosophical for the past few years. Now, observe a well educated mind will always have more questions than answers. The examiner is asking you about what is well educated mind, difference between information and education. And this has been asked prior. For example, truth finds wisdom, right? And education which is not molded makes a man a smarter evil. So these kind of questions have been asked. So for these keywords, you should have a ready made anecdote, a ready made quotation, and some of the framework about what you will write. In the case of ethics, around those keywords, you should have relevant examples from day to day basis. For example, when you talk about, let's suppose, ethical dilemma or aptitude or attitude for that matter, related to daily examples. For example, you hear the news story about Tukaram Munde. Develop a case study associated with that. Your ability to prepare it beforehand will leave you with lesser surprises in the exam hall and your scoreability increases. Interrelation of a topic is must. Many of the questions that you would have seen are very generic in nature. For example, caste in urban India, it is diminishing or not? Now, in that, any random individual will be able to tell you something about it. But what will fetch you marks? How will you be able to score marks? So, for that, you need to have nuances, economic angle in the urban uh, area, right? The kind of a cosmopolitan culture. All those aspects are required. Even, for example, when we talk about GS paper 1, you had a question in GS paper 1 which was earlier asked in GS paper 2. That is, the trade is shifting from Atlantic to Indo Pacific. Now, there you have to talk about the decline of Europe economically. You have to talk about the semiconductor part of science and tech, rise of semiconductor industry in the region of Asia, rise of China plus one. So, please do not study the topics in isolation, in silos. So, how do you cover it all together? So basically, ensure once you are covering the subject, revising the subject at least twice. After that, have a combined revision. That will ensure a comprehensive completion and preparation as well. Then, the relevance of PYQs. PYQs are repeated, expected, and trends are to be noted. In GS paper 3, you had a question associated with solid waste management. That solid waste management was asked because this year you had solid waste management rules 2026 which was passed. This is the reason why in almost all our classes we have been consistently telling you, any of the English medium classes that you would have attended, you would have seen that we have been consistently driving this, that please look at the topics in greater detail and understand where this can be asked. Almost from all the subjects, we can, with a great amount of satisfaction, say, if you have attended Sarmat sir's class, or if you have attended my class of geography, environment, Abhishek sir's class, or Chetan sir's class, or Shyam sir's class, you would have found that this question was very much doable. Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was asked. This is something which was passed 3 years ago, but why was it asked this year? Because this year India submitted its seventh biodiversity report and the target. So that made it relevant this year. Solid Waste Management Rules 2026 targeted the bulk generators of the waste, and also in one of the provisions targeted the legacy waste, which means the dump yards which are there, the garbage dumps which are there. So that tells you that PYQs, if you know what trend, what kind of aspect has been asked earlier, right? Then you will be able to predict the future as well. Question of speaker, question of governor is repeated quite often. And that prediction of theme, for example, when we talk about, let's suppose, digital rupee, very much in news. Ashokan inscription, I told you earlier, different types of architecture has been asked. So this prediction of themes will help you prepare better for the upcoming examination. So as a candidate who is appearing for the exam next year or year after that, how do you prepare for the mains? So you can do it on your own as well. Or in case that is not possible, take guidance. But then please understand one thing. If you have been preparing for some time and you found this mains paper very tough, means you are not referring to the right material, you are not referring to the right educator. Change the study material, change the approach. So, what should you do? After completion of a topic, ensure that you have periodic and timely revision. And revision can be done through the PYQs. Those of you who are appearing for the optional paper, please do this. Revise the PYQs for optional. You will find that scoreability even next this weekend. PYQs based revision, then the themes, expected themes. This will tell you the important topics, which are the topics out of every subject. Now, once you know about these topics, then please ensure that you are able to maintain what? Topic based notes, one pager, topic based notes. And in these topic based notes, please keep on adding and subtracting. Addition or subtraction needs to be done. Any current affairs, add it. Mission Drishti, very much in discussion, right? When we talk about those Kalpakkam, fast breeder reaction, very much in discussion. We have had those YouTube videos, newspaper analysis, we have covered those. So, whenever something like this comes in, please add on to your topic based notes. These topic based notes need to be revised. You need to have a common template. For example, in GS paper 2, you always find a question associated with National Commission on Women, National Commission for Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribes. When we talk about IR, you will have a generic question associated with the groupings like the BRICS and so on. So that is very much on the expected line. Please prepare those expected themes. So you should have a separate theme based preparation. This will work particularly in ethics, in IR as well, even in the case of polity. For example, in ethics, you have these keywords. Okay, keywords as in some of the important words like integrity, attitude, then ethical integrity, ethical dilemma, all of that. With each of these keywords, you should have 3 to 4 different types of case studies that you should have prepared. Prepare it beforehand. Okay, take a look at the syllabus, the detailed syllabus which is mentioned in the notification issued by UPSC. Each and every subtopic in that notification should have your own notes. Do this much, and the next mains examination is for you to capture. I hope that you extract something meaningful out of the session. However, what was your overall and the first reaction of the mains paper? Let me know in the comment section. Till we meet again, prepare well, but relax, because after all, this mains has proven it is just another examination. Till we meet again, goodbye. Thank you.